Good evening, folks. This is Deb, and tonight we have a very special edition of Shut the Fuck Up. This is my list of the 10 most loathsome women in public life. Now, I'm going to present them to you, and they're not coming to you in order of most loathsome to least loathsome. These are all pretty loathsome people. And I got notes here because we got some quotes and all kinds of fun stuff. So we're going to start off with the two people you would most assume would be on this list. And I want to get them over early because, honestly, their antics are all over the place since 2020. And they get way too much press, in my opinion. But I can't just, shortchange them. They've got to be mentioned here. So we're going to start with Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is a woman who claimed that the 9/11 terrorist attacks were, at least in part, participated in by the U.S. government. And she also suggested that there was a body double replacing Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that she had already died, like a year before she actually really died. But here's one of my favorite quotes from Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she was on Real American News Network, and she made this statement, quote, "So everything is completely out of control. Not only do we have the DC jail, which is the DC gulag, but now we have Nancy Pelosi's gazpacho police spying on members of Congress," end quote. It was at that moment that many people took to social media to explain to the American public that Marjorie Taylor Greene was actually referring to the Gestapo, not to gazpacho, which is a cold soup. But, she's not only the most annoying person on the planet, but she's seriously one of the most stupid people on the planet. We got another one from Marjorie. We just can't short shrift these people. So she's here talking about the January 6th insurrection, and that's exactly what it was. An attempted coup, an overthrow of the government. This is what she said. Quote, "On one side of the Capitol, people were singing. They were praying. I mean, it was, amazing. Other side of the Capitol, yeah, there was a little riot going on." Then she goes on to say, "Approximately over 800 people went inside the Capitol. But there was very small percent in there that day out of all the people that were there that actually did anything wrong. And they are being persecuted. It's a political witch hunt," end quote. First of all, I'd like to clarify something for Marjorie. On that day, the Capitol was closed to the entire public because that was the day that the election was being certified and no one was allowed in the Capitol. So they weren't tourists, okay? And I suggest to you that stealing Nancy Pelosi's files in the podium, defecating inside the Capitol, beating the shit out of the Capitol Police, going in there with the intent to kidnap Nancy Pelosi, they had zip ties, and building gallows to hang Mike Pence was more than just a little riot. And that, the fact that these people are in prison is exactly where they belong. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, once again, please shut the fuck up. Here we go. We have Lauren Boebert. We have a couple from her too. So at one point, she was placed on the defensive. And she was placed on the defensive because she was being investigated. So she says, quote, "I connect with the people I serve rather than sitting at home in a basement like most leftists," end quote. What she was being investigated for was allegedly using $22,000 from her campaign for mileage reimbursements to connect with her constituents. What she actually used that money for was to pay $20,000 in tax liens on a restaurant in Rifle, Colorado. Okay? She had tax liens on her restaurant, which is now defunct, because she refused or failed to pay Colorado unemployment premiums. Now, we have more. Another gem of a quote. The saddest thing about the fentanyl crisis is that it's preventable. Well, you know, look, I'd like to point out a few other things that are preventable. You know, like mass shootings. You can prevent mass shootings if you ban assault weapons, okay? Climate change. You can keep the earth from frying or freezing, depending upon how things go here, if we move away from fossil fuels and stop the drill baby drill nonsense. And, you know, if we can put people over profits, we can prevent the middle class from becoming extinct and having a society with either the poorest or the richest. So all of these things are preventable. But Lauren doesn't want to talk about those other things, okay? So Lauren Gobert, at almost every turn, you should really shut the fuck up. You really should. Moving on here. Ann Coulter. All right. Now, we all are familiar with Ann Coulter belittling Gus Waltz because he was excited about his father being nominated, showed some emotion as a male, a 17-year-old kid who was excited for his father, crying and cheering and pointing to his father and saying, "That's my dad." Apparently, that's a problem for Ann Coulter, but she's been taking over the coals for that. But I have another one from Ann Coulter. This is one. I love this one. Quote, "I am a settler. I am descended from settlers, not from immigrants." Well, you know, I don't know. I'm sorry, but, you know, dumb seems to be a prerequisite for women in the GOP or women on the right. If you type in, just go to Google and type in synonyms for settlers, and some of the words that come up are immigrants, colonizers, and squatters. So I'm afraid that Ann fails to recognize that our ancestors came over here and stole this land from the actual Native Americans. We not only stole their land, but we managed to bring them a whole host of diseases they'd never seen before, gave them some smallpox blankets to keep themselves warm, you know, managed to off the rest of them, march them halfway across the country on the Trail of Tears to put them on little plots of land where they thought they deserved to, we thought they deserved to live, even though they were here in some cases 10,000 years before the white man, and stole their children and put them in schools to make sure that we could take the Native American culture out of them. Yeah, we're real sweethearts. Yeah, but let's move on here because Ann Coulter's another dumbass and she can shut the fuck up. I don't know what rock she slithered out from under, but she can go back under there again. Marsha Blackburn. Let's do Marsha next. One of my all-time favorite people on the ignorance scale, the sitting senator from Tennessee. This is one of her tweets. Has the situation in Ukraine taught Biden nothing? We need a secure border now. Well, yeah, Marsha. Well, we actually tried to give you that, but Donald Trump put an end to that. So let's make this clear. We don't have a border bill because the Republican Party chose to follow Donald Trump's lead and kill it so that he would have something to run on. So let's get that out of the way. But let's explain to Marsha that she may need a globe or a remedial geography lesson. okay? Because that statement just is absurd on its face. But again, I'm not sure she can rub two brain cells together. So she should actually shut the fuck up. Let's see, where do we go from here? Oh, how about J.K. Rowling, another hateful white woman? Yep, J.K. Rowling, and let me set the scene for this one, because this has to be at some point a subject for a bigger video, because there's a lot to this. There's a lot to unpack with the story. But this happened during the Olympics when Amani Khalef, an Algerian female boxer, took on a woman from Italy. And the woman from Italy actually took a hit from Amani Khalef, and 46 seconds into the bout, she backed out and took herself out of the competition. Now, she did this because she stated she had never been hit so hard before in her life. She was actually afraid, okay? And immediately, the group of people that I love to call the Internet Transvestigation Unit got right on their high horse. And, this is a group of people, and I'm going to mention, in addition to J.K. Rowling, I will read her quote in a few seconds, but let me tell you who else was in on this. And one was Donald Trump, two was Joe Rogan, three was Elon Musk, and then J.K. Rowling. And it immediately, they got on the anti-trans train, even though there were no transgender athletes at the Olympics, because frankly, they're scared to death to let them compete because of stuff like this. All right. So J.K. Rowling, with absolutely no evidence of any of this, totally devastating an athlete who worked hard to get where she is. And believe me, she is a fierce hitter, okay? But she has lost plenty of bouts as well, okay? She ended up winning the gold medal, which I personally am ecstatic for. But this is what J.K. Rowling said right after the end of that 46-second match. Quote, "Could any picture sum up our new men's rights movement better? The smirk of a male who knows he's protected by a misogynist sporting establishment, enjoying the distress of a woman he's just punched in the head and whose life's ambition he just shattered." End quote. First of all, Amani Khalef is not a man. And to go out there in the public venue in the middle of a worldwide sporting event and I'm going to say it, bully this girl, because then they all joined in, the other three idiots that I mentioned, simply because she was a better prepared athlete, is unconscionable, unforgivable. There is no amount of apologies that J.K. Rowling could make that would make me say, yeah, I'll forgive you. Never. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. The freaking girl's father was devastated and actually showed her birth certificate. That's how upset he was at what they were doing. This is not okay, folks. J.K. Rowling is undoubtedly a loathsome bitch. And she has destroyed Harry Potter for me for the rest of my life. Okay, I have tossed out everything I ever had. All right. And I feel bad about that, because actually every single one of the people that was of any consequence in that movie has come out against J.K. Rowling's statement on transgender people in general. But let me tell you that Amani Khalef not only won the gold, but she has now filed a cyberbullying lawsuit against Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling. And Donald Trump is also mentioned in the lawsuit. And it is being filed in France, where the Olympics were held. And the prosecutor in France says they take this stuff very seriously. And they actually do, because you know what? In France, they don't worry about all this culture war shit. They don't. So let me just give some advice to J.K. Rowling. She should shut the fuck up, because ultimately it's going to cost her money. And I hope more people indeed sue this witch. She's got plenty of money to give. Number 6, Tulsi Gabbard, who, by the way, it was just announced today, Donald Trump has added to his transition team. Maybe she can help him get ready for prison. Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. have been added to his transition team now. 2 loonies. And let me just say this. We're going to do a video on his transition team as well. Because there are other losers on that one as well. But we're not going to talk about that right now. So at one time, this was something that Tulsi Gabbard actually lived by. I actually considered voting for her at one point. I don't even want to look at her now. This is a quote from yesteryear. And I have a reason for this. It's when we care for each other, choosing inclusion and love over division and hatred, that our country is at its greatest. And that is a very true statement even today, and even if Tulsi Gabbard no longer lives by that. Now Tulsi Gabbard is pretty much anti-gay, pretty much anti-trans, pretty much anti-woman, because she is actually endorsed Donald Trump, who is a adjudicated rapist, a defamer, a liar, a man who is systematically taking away women's rights. And this woman, if that's what we want to call her, is wholeheartedly endorsing Donald Trump. That's quite a turnaround from the progressive she once positioned herself as. The woman who was proud to sing John Lennon's Imagine with her husband from Aloha, Hawaii. She should never, ever, ever touch that song again. Tulsi Gabbard, she could permanently shut the fuck up as far as I'm concerned. She's an ex-Democrat and it needs to stay that way. Let's see. Number 7. Another internet influencer for the right, Laura Loomer. Now, you know Laura, she's pretty vile. I could make an entire hour show on Laura Loomer's statements, but I'll do something more recent. So, you know, former Representative Gabby Giffords is married to Senator Mark Kelly. Now, Gabby Giffords was shot in the head in a mass shooting in Colorado. And it has taken her a long time to recover. She has, you know, had to learn how to walk, learned how to talk all over again. And she has done so. And she's actually quite an eloquent speaker now. And she is in full command of her faculties. And she actually wrote a very excellent endorsement of Kamala Harris on Twitter. And I refuse to call it X because that's what Elon Musk wants to call it, and I can't stand him. This is what Laura Loomer posted in response to Gabby Giffords' endorsement. Quote, Gabby Giffords is brain dead after taking a bullet to the head during a tragic shooting outside of the Walgreens next to my old house. Everyone knows she doesn't write her own tweets. That's actually not true. But then she goes on to say, hey, at Senator Mark Kelly, are you now using your wife's X account to appeal to Kamala Harris so she picks you as VP? You know what? You can't get much lower than Laura Loomer on the disgusting meter, unless, of course, you're number 8, Chaya Raichik. So, for the benefit of people who may not know Chaya Raichik, she is the head of the Libs of TikTok, which is a virulently anti-gay, anti-trans activist group. And she has said some of the most loathsome things about transgender people. And I take that shit personally since I have a transgender daughter. Okay. So this is her commentary after being suspended by Twitter. Now, this was a long time ago. This was before, this was when a sane person owned Twitter. Okay. It's no holds barred with Elon Musk. He's let all of these people back on, including Donald Trump. But this is what Chaya Raichik had to say. Quote, any sane person realizes that mutilating children for gender affirmation is barbaric. This is why they work so hard to cover their tracks. They don't want you to know about it, or you might put a stop to it. Their agenda depends on reaching and irreversibly damaging these children at as early an age as possible. Getting suspended by Twitter has made me realize my biggest mistake. I only called one hospital. I should have called dozens. So let me tell you what the bottom line is with Chaya Raichik. She has spent so much time denigrating and spreading misinformation about providers who help transgender youth and adults, by the way, that there have been numerous bomb and death threats against people. And we'll summarize just a few of them here, okay? On March 11th, and I don't remember what year this was exactly, but Raichik and other outlets began criticizing Planet Fitness for allowing trans girls and women into women's locker rooms. Raichik's campaign spread to other right-wing media outlets like Fox News, the Outkick podcast, which is a Fox Corporation outlet, the Daily Wire, and, the broadcast of transphobe Matt Walsh, okay? And there have been bomb threats. There were bomb threats reported against Planet Fitness, locations in Fairbanks, Alaska, 4 locations in Providence, Rhode Island, 4 locations in and around Jackson, Mississippi, and various locations in Connecticut, 6 locations in Wayne County, Michigan. Not only that, her commentary has been linked to harassment and bomb threats against children's hospitals, including Boston Children's Hospital in my state, medical providers, schools, teachers, drag performances, and many other people who are just trying to live a life. There are 337 million people in the United States. Out of that 337 million, it is estimated that only 1.6 identify as transgender. What is with the obsession with such a small amount of people in the population? It's because they can vilify them. And they can make this bigger than it needs to be. This is not your business. Not your business. As Tim Walz says, the golden rule is mind your own damn business. But you know what? For the right wing, this is really all they've got, no matter how you want to look at this. No matter how you want to look at this. This is pretty much all that they have. Number 9, Kristi Noem. Who doesn't love a puppy killer, huh? She's got some justification for that, though. I'm looking for it right now. I'm going to find it and we're going to talk about it. Okay, so Kristi Noem. Who doesn't love a puppy killer? Let's forget the fact that Kristi Noem opened up her state to COVID-19 at the peak of that illness by inviting unmasked and unvaccinated bikers to Sturgis to infect the general population. These were people who probably didn't even come from her own state, the vast majority of them, who were sick, carrying the disease, caused a 600% spike in COVID cases in her state, in that area, and thought it was funny. Thought it was just a joke because it's not real. Because that's all about your freedom, isn't it? Your freedom to infect everybody else with a killer pandemic disease that nobody really knew anything about. But I digress. It's also been revealed that Kristi Noem decided her puppy was untrainable and shot it at 14 months old in a gravel pit in front of a mortified construction site. It was done right there in full view. Okay. This is what she said. I hated that dog. Less than worthless as a hunting dog, untrainable, and dangerous to anyone she came in contact with. So it was also reported that the dog attacked some neighbors' chickens. Okay. But one professional trainer of hunting dogs said that at 14 months, the dog was a baby that did not know any better, and that the dog's untrainable nature was more than likely, quote, due to a lack of guidance, training, and discipline by the owner, end quote. Kristi Noem, honestly, is a despicable human being at almost every level. A woman who talks about family values, but has conducted a years-long affair with Corey Lewandowski, who is right up there with Donald Trump on the sexual abuse category. A guy who has been banned from using his own super PAC because the woman who was the biggest donor to that super PAC accused him of unwanted sexual abuse. So we have one more, number 10, the most loathsome women in public life. And my last choice is Melania Trump, for just one word. She only had to say one word. When the whole J6 insurrection was going on, I believe it was Stephanie Grisham asked if they could at least tweet out that violence is unacceptable and it needs to stop, without even taking a moment to breathe. Melania Trump turned around and uttered one word, and it was no. And that was that. So there you have it, folks. My top 10 most loathsome women in the public view. Now, these aren't the only women. I could easily come up with another 10, and there will be, more than likely, a follow-up shut the fuck up for those women as well. But frankly, our entire world of social media would be so much more pleasant without these 10 women. It really would. So I'm going to suggest to you that getting rid of the rabble in the House and the Senate that empowers these kind of people, and making sure that Donald Trump is not reelected, will go a long way to taking away some of their power and presence on social media. I hope you guys have a great night, and I'll talk to you later.